Hey everybody, welcome back. I hope everyone's having a great week. I know I'm a little bit behind on videos, but I was feeling a little sick last week and then I started to feel a little bit lazy, but I'm back and I'm going to go over episode 4 and 5 of The Last of Us in this one episode. So it's going to be a little bit longer. Just sit back, grab some coffee, and let's get into it. Spoilers, by the way. So I'm going to go over episode 4 really quick because I want to get into episode 5. It's a really good episode. It's an episode mostly focused on Ellie and Joel's relationship. We really get to see them grow and start to connect a little bit more. Ellie has her pun book from the game and we get to see her annoy Joel, but we also get to see him kind of come around to it towards the end. We pick up where they left off in episode 3. They have the truck and they're heading for Wyoming. They have to cut through Kansas City, but the highway's blocked off, so they end up having to cut through the city itself. And this is where they get ambushed by bandits, just like in the game. Joel crashes the truck and has to fight off this group of bandits while Ellie's kind of tucked away in a corner. Joel kills all of them, but one of them does get the jump on him, nearly killing him. Ellie rolls up with her piece that she was packing. She stole it from Bill and Frank's house. This is where she shoots her first non-infected person. She doesn't kill him like she does in the game. It kind of just wounds him, and then we get to see as he struggles to fight for his life and begging and crying out for his mom. It's kind of chilling and you can see it in Ellie's face. He suffers for a bit, but Joel eventually ends up finishing it. It does this really smart thing where it focuses on Ellie's perspective as she's walking away, and we just hear Joel kill him with his own knife just to save a bullet, just the kind of person that Joel is. This is kind of a really important part for Ellie. You can see that this is like a loss of innocence for her. It slowly is just kind of breaking away the innocent girl that we know. Again, Bella Ramsey's acting is perfect here. We get to tell everything that we need to just from her facial expressions alone. And then when Joel comes back, she wipes her tears away like nothing's wrong. Everything's perfectly fine. Let's just move on. But Joel can see through it. You can tell that he's starting to care for her a little bit more. He does this hodgepodge effort to kind of comfort her. He's not really good at it. He's a little bit out of practice. He says that it isn't fair that she had to do that, and he begins to trust her a little bit more. He teaches her how to hold her gun properly, and we get this little moment between them. He tells her to put the gun in her backpack. I want to make note of that for later on. We're introduced to the leader of the bandits, or in this case, the resistance, Kathleen. This character wasn't in the game originally, but it seems like with the show, they're trying to humanize these enemies a little bit more. In the game, they're kind of just cannon fodder. They're an enemy for you to kill that switches up the gameplay a little bit. But with the show, they're actually trying to make it more personal, make it, a little bit more in-depth, which I really enjoy. And then we also get this handsome devil who is played by the voice actor for Tommy in the games. We can see as this group has only recently liberated Kansas City from Fedra, so they're still kind of getting in the groove of being in charge and dealing with the civil duties of running a city. And we're hinted at a threat underground. I wonder what that could be. Joel and Ellie take shelter in this tall tower in order to get a view in the morning of the city layout so they can find their way out. And as this episode wraps up, we get to see this nice shift in Joel and Ellie's relationship. Joel's walls have really come down and we can start to see that he's connecting to her a little bit more, going as far as to start the conversations between her about her past, which previously he said he wanted to know nothing about. And we get this moment where he really expresses interest in her past and letting her know that it isn't fair that a girl her age has to deal with the problems that come with surviving in this world. Ellie hits him with a banger pun joke, sending him into a laughing fit. This man probably hasn't laughed like this in over 20 years. It's such a nice moment and it pulls at my heartstrings. He lets his guard down a little bit and then is quickly woken up to a gun pointing in his face by a small child wearing face paint. Now jumping into episode 5. This right here, best episode hands down. Perfect. A 10 out of 10 banger. Now this episode starts off with a little bit of a rewind. We get to see how Kathleen and the Resistance liberated Kansas City from Fedra. It opens up and we get to see just the violent nature of this group as they're killing the remaining members of Fedra. And we get to see Kathleen as she's interrogating this group of informants. She's looking for Henry for some reason. We're not sure yet. Just the way she holds herself in this interrogation, we get to see the dark personality that she has. We can see that there's a little bit of questioning to her methods. She's putting a lot of focus into finding Henry, but there's a bigger problem at hand that she should be focusing on, but chooses to put that second. Now, finally, we get to meet Henry and Sam. Now, I want to take a moment to truly express just how wonderful these two actors are. They did such a phenomenal job. Just like with Bill and Frank, we're only given like an hour or so to connect to these characters, and within the first few minutes, I was fully on board. They did an amazing job. They made this really creative and amazing choice with Sam, where they made him deaf. In the game, this wasn't a thing, but in the show, they made Sam's character deaf, and Henry and Sam have to communicate through sign language. It just adds this extra character dynamic that I didn't know we needed. Sam's also a little bit younger than he was, and this helps with really letting the viewer get connected to Sam and really sympathize with Henry and the decisions that he's made. One of the big things about The Last of Us is we're introduced to all these characters, and they always play a little bit of a mirror image to Joel and Ellie and their relationship, and that's no different here. In the show, Henry's a pacifist, so he's never really killed anybody. He's not somebody who is inherently violent. He has to kind of think outside the box to get things done the way he wants. Now, he has a plan to get out of the city, but he doesn't really have the means to do it. And that's when he sees Joel take on the bandits and realizes that Joel is capable of doing what he's not. So he wants to team up with Joel. He pitches his plan to Joel and Ellie. Basically, there's a tunnel system underneath the city that they're going to use to get out of the city because Kathleen has guards on every exit of the city. While Fedra was in charge, they pushed all of the infected underground. So Kathleen is afraid of the underground. She won't go down there. But Henry knows, because he was an informant for Fedra, that the underground has actually been cleared of the infected. There might be a few down there, but nothing that Joel can't handle. Joel and Ellie agree to go along with this plan, so they move forward to get out of the city together. Now, once down there, Joel tells Ellie to pull her gun out, and we get to see the perfect disappointed dad look on Joel's face as he realizes that Ellie didn't listen and pulls her gun out of her jacket instead of her backpack. Now, people that played the game will be happy to see that they included the underground community run by Ish. Now, we don't get a whole lot of backstory in the show, but if you played the game, it's just an extra detail that you know. You essentially find all these letters down there, and you learn about the whole formation of this community and the downfall of it. It's this whole story packaged up in the background that could be missed if you weren't paying attention. It's stuff like that that makes this show perfect. We get this rare chance to see Ellie and Sam be kids. They get to play. There's a whole classroom set up. There's a bunch of games and stuff. We just get to see them fully become kids, and it's a nice little moment. Joel and Henry get this parenting bonding moment where Henry lets Joel know everything, why he made the decisions that he did, why he was a Fedra informant. Henry points out that Joel has this look about him. He knows that Joel was a parent, even if it isn't to Ellie, that he was a parent at one point, and that he knows that he would do whatever it takes to take care of that kid, that he is a protector, and that Henry sold out the previous leader of the resistance, also Kathleen's brother, in order to save his little brother, because we find out that not only is he deaf, he's also a leukemia survivor. As if this little kid's life wasn't hard enough. Joel fully sympathizes with Henry and understands why he did the things that he did. Finally, they make it out of the tunnels without having seen a single infected the whole time. Turns out his plan worked just how he said it was going to, but they are met with a sniper at the end of a cul-de-sac. This happened in the game, and you had to make your way to the sniper and take him out. The only difference is that this time the sniper is absolute trash. Joel's easily able to make his way over to him and kill him, take him out. But we realize that he was lookout for Kathleen, and he informed her, and now her and the whole resistance are on their way there now. With Joel in the sniper tower, you have Ellie, Henry, and Sam all on foot when Kathleen gets there. And just as she's about to enact her vengeance on Henry, we get to see just how cold and morally skewed she is. She essentially says that children die all the time. So why is it that Sam's life is more important than her brother's? And that Henry should have just let fate play out the way it was supposed to. To her, Sam should have just died. And just as she's about to kill Henry, a pit opens up in the ground, releasing hundreds of infected. And we finally get to see the bloater. This thing is terrifying. It's an absolute tank. There is no soloing a bloater like you do in the games. It's a complete unstoppable force. And we get this glorious moment where Tommy's voice actor gets the death animation from the bloater where it just rips his head clean off. All hell seems to have broken loose. Ellie is running for an SUV to take shelter while Joel is covering her. Once she gets inside, she's faced with a child clicker. Complete nightmare fuel. I did not need to see this, but I also did. It was glorious. She notices that Sam and Henry are pinned under a car by 2 clickers, so she rushes over and she takes them out with her knife, just like in the game, showing just like how absolutely OP she is. The 3 of them make a run for it, and just as they're about to escape, they're met with Kathleen once again, only to have her completely destroyed by this child clicker. It's a little bit of a poetic justice, but they meet up with Joel and the 4 of them escape safely. And as they're escaping, you can see the whole herd of infected is headed towards Kansas City. They make their way to a hotel to shelter down, and you can see that Joel has really come out of his shell. He offers Henry and Sam to join them on their trip to Wyoming. Sam and Ellie share this beautiful moment together. Just like in the game, they open up about their fears. They're communicating over this little pad that Sam carries with him so that he can talk to people that don't know sign language. I didn't really mention it before, but it was really smart the way that they did this. Henry and Sam are able to communicate through sign language perfectly. They have this beautiful way of communicating to each other, similar to how Joel and Ellie have their own way of communicating to each other, like an adult talking to a child, how you wouldn't normally see that. Yeah, it's an aspect that you don't get in the game, but you also don't get it in very many other mediums either. And I think it's important to note that Sam isn't just the deaf kid that Henry has to take care of. That comes second. Sam is a cancer survivor whose older brother is doing everything he can to make sure that he survives. And I just thought that was a really nice touch. Ellie tells Sam that her biggest fear is ending up alone. This line is so important to Ellie's character. Knowing that all of the decisions that Ellie makes going forward are made with the idea that she has lost so much and that the one thing that she can't stand is to be alone. That is her biggest fear. Sam reveals to Ellie that he was bitten. He writes in his notepad, "If you turn into a monster, is it still you inside?" And I kind of want to unpack that a little bit. Ellie asks the same question earlier about if the infected are still people. And, you know, she has her own personal reasons for doing this. It has to do with her past. If you remember the first scene where she killed an infected, it's almost like she's kind of testing to see if they react like a human does or if there's any sort of humanity left inside of them. And she comes to the conclusion that they're completely gone. It's her way of kind of accepting and dealing with her own trauma. But this can also be reflected onto the people themselves, what people have done in order to survive in this world, the terrible things that Joel might have done. I know that earlier she asks him how he knew that it was an ambush, and he told her that he's been on both sides. And she asked if he killed innocent people before, and he doesn't really give her an answer, but that also is the answer. People have become monsters in order to survive in a world full of monsters. The Last of Us really is a show or a story about the last of humanity. And you have to think deep down, you know, are they really the person that they used to be after having to do such terrible things? And it's just deep food for thought to remember going forward in the story. Now, after Sam shows Ellie his bite mark, Ellie, without hesitation, tells Sam that not to worry. Her blood is medicine. She shows him her bite mark, and she cuts her hand open, hoping that her blood will cure him from an infection. She promises to stay up with him throughout the night, but eventually she falls asleep. And when she wakes up, Sam is facing a window opposite of her. She calls out to him, but he doesn't respond. She remembers that he's deaf, so she goes to touch him on the shoulder, and that's when Sam turns on her. Joel goes to rescue her, but Henry shoots the ground in front of him to stop him. And after a second of debating, Henry realizes what he has to do, and he shoots Sam. This is the first person that Henry has ever killed. The first person that Henry kills is his own brother that he would go to extreme lengths in order to save. The acting here is so important. Everybody gives an Oscar-worthy performance, especially Bella Ramsey. The expression on her face when Henry decides that there's nothing worth living for anymore and takes his own life is haunting. I didn't cry during this part in the game, but during the show, I was moved to tears. And I want to play a clip from the podcast that shines light on what I was talking about earlier.
The promise.
Yeah.
The promise to stay awake. When she wakes up in the morning. Man. There's still some moments that just really hit me. Sam couldn't hear.
Exactly.
And what that says is it was still him inside.
Yep.
And that is what a powerful thesis.
Again, this podcast is amazing and you get so much more insight to the episodes. I really recommend it to everybody. But this is just a small detail that adds a whole nother heartbreaking layer to an already tragic story. Joel and Ellie give them a burial, which this is a moment that Joel probably wouldn't do on his own. Realistically, taking the time to dig graves and bury them and give them a memorial probably wouldn't happen, but he does this for Ellie. She takes it very personal. The idea that she's supposed to be this cure for humanity, but she cannot save two people that are very important to her that she connects with. And, there's stuff in her backstory that hasn't been shown yet. We really get to see layers of innocence just kind of removed with every big moment that happens. And it really starts to shape the character. She writes, "I'm sorry" on the pad that Sam uses. And when Joel sees this, he starts to get scared. He realizes that, he has something to lose. He realizes that, he wasn't able to save his daughter years ago. And now he's being put into a situation where if he's faced with that again, how is he going to handle it? Is he going to end up like Henry? Is he going to take that chance? Or is he going to move this burden onto somebody else and get as far away from it as possible? This is a big shift in Joel's personality. And again, this is the best episode of the show so far. They're doing an outstanding job. Like, hats off to Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann. These guys are doing a phenomenal job. Like, not even forget that this was a game 10 years ago. As a show on its own, it is extremely good. If this was the first time that we were ever seeing this story, people would be raving about how good it is because the writing is brilliant. The directing is amazing. The acting is completely phenomenal. Like, Oscar-worthy acting from everybody. The set designs, the hair, the makeup, the prosthetics, all of it is S tier. They are not pulling any punches when it comes to the show. Next week, we're going to get some of the most heartbreaking scenes from the game, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. Every episode from this point on has a lot to cover, a lot of deep emotional story beats, and I think people are really going to see why this game was raved about so much. But they've proven that they can handle it, and they have my trust 100%. I cannot wait. But that's it for now, guys. If you made it this far, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
I could spend a year alone and never miss a soul. I could try my hardest and I'll never reach my goals. I know that I'm weak, need more love inside my heart. Didn't want to change, but I think that today is a good time to start. It's a good time to start.